Hi, I'm Whitney Lauritsen from EcoVeganGal.com, and welcome back to another live Q&A. We're going to get started in just a moment with guest Julieanna Hever, but I first want to start off with a few notes and announcements. Number one, if you are watching live and you want to ask questions, we'll be taking live questions in about 45 minutes. To ask them, you need to go to Google Plus, which is Google Plus, or I can't speak today. Google.com/+EcoVeganGal. There's a link on Facebook and Twitter if you just want a really quick link to go to it. Asking there on the EcoVeganGal Google Plus page is the only way I can see your questions during the live video. If you're watching or listening to the recorded version of this, there is a bit.ly link in the description field that you can click on to ask questions for the future. I prefer it that way as opposed to comments because it's easier to keep track of them. So if you leave a comment, that's great, but I might not see it for a little bit. Speaking of comments, I think it's fantastic when people comment in. Please feel free to comment as much as you want. You can ask questions there, of course, and I'll get to them as soon as I can, but other people might end up answering them in the meantime. Check out what other people are saying, and if they have something that you want to add to, feel free to reply there. And if I say something that you want to add to, I would love to hear your opinion, any research that you've done, any knowledge that you have, please share it there because you are equally important. And speaking of asking questions, there's a great system called SpeakPipe. There's a link to it in the description below where you can ask questions with your voice. And it's really neat because not only do I get to hear your voice, but with your permission, I'll play that on one of the upcoming Q&A videos so other people can hear you. And it just adds to the whole experience of it. Let's see what else. If you want to jump forward in the videos, don't want to watch the entire thing or listen to it all, you can click on the description field and there's links to all the different timestamps for each question that is addressed during these videos. So if you're in a hurry, you want to get to something specific, go ahead and click down there right to it. Speaking of listening to things, I'm now putting these videos in audio form on SoundCloud, and SoundCloud is a way for you to just listen. You can download the app. There's probably a way to connect it to iTunes. I haven't tried that yet myself, but it's a nice way to listen to it podcast style if you're, say, driving or something, or you're doing something else where you don't want to just watch the video. So look for that link in the description field. In the description field, you'll also find links to all of the products and websites that are mentioned in this Q&A. Those usually end up in there within about 24 hours from the recording. So come back around to check out anything that I've mentioned. So if you want to learn more about it, all of that information will be provided there. All right, I think I'm waiting for Julieanna to chime in, and I think that she just messaged me. So let me see what's going on with her. And yeah, she's just waiting for the link. Hopefully she will join in soon. I'll give her a few more minutes. If not, actually, I'm just going to send the link to her. How about that? We'll make it nice and easy. Technology these days, right? How are you guys liking these Hangouts in the meantime? If you're watching live, I would love to hear your comments. And if you're watching the recorded video, I would love to hear how it's all working for you. Speaking of which, it's going, a little bit of technical difficulty. I apologize for that. No. Come on. It's not working. Okay. Well, I'm going to give Julieanna a moment and ask her. Let me see here. All right, so in the meantime, I have some great announcements that I want to share with you. First of all, I just want to remind you that you can get a copy of my free ebook, which is all about easy, cheap, healthy vegan meals that cost less than $2 each and take less than 15 minutes of time. There's a link in the YouTube description, or you can go to past Q&A videos if you want to see that immediately. And download that there to get some more knowledge. And it's kind of like a teaser to my upcoming ebook that I'm hoping will be out sometime in July 2014. And that will be all about healthy eating on a budget. And I am so excited to release this for you. I have been researching through so many books and websites and learning so much about how to save money while eating healthy, and I can't wait to share that all with you. That is one of the most common things that I hear that holds people back from eating healthy and adapting a vegan diet. So, oh yeah, Julieanna's having some trouble for some reason. I don't know why. Sorry about this. Let's see, come on. I'm still going to give her some time. I often find that people just have to do a little bit of of research to figure this out at first. So again, I would love if any of you have suggestions how to make this whole process smoother, please leave that in the comment field so that everybody can have a smoother time and I can provide the simplest information possible to make it really easy for you. The other announcement I want to make, I have a few products that I'm going to talk about today, and I also wanted to tell you, those of you who are in the California area, anywhere on the West Coast, or are planning on traveling this summer, there is a vegan prom happening, which means it's really just a fun event that you can come to and meet other vegans or vegetarians, veg-curious people. This is great if you're dating someone or want to date someone and meet new people. This is wonderful if you just want to go have fun and go to a party. There's so many cool aspects of this prom, and it's coming up on June 8th in Los Angeles at the Animal Advocacy Museum, which if you haven't been there yet is such a neat place to celebrate veganism and people doing animal advocacy. So definitely check that out if you have time. I will link to that down below, or if you can just go to veggiepromwest.com. And the whole prom idea is really just to have fun with it and make it kind of feel like a prom. If you want to go back to the prom days, you can dress up or you can just go casually. It's whatever you want to make of it. And the people organizing it are so fantastic. The next thing I want to mention is that I've decided to bring back the Eco Vegan Gal Book Club. I did this in 2012, and it was so wonderful. We actually did this through Google+, so we have this great group of people that are still there, and we would meet, I think it might have been once a week, but now I'm going to change it to once a month. And we're going to do it mainly through audiobooks. You'll have the option of doing audiobooks or reading an actual book. You can get a book from a library, you can buy a book, you can download a book and listen to it. I know a lot of you, especially who are watching these Q&As, are doing them or listening to them while you're commuting or doing other things, and you really want to learn more information. I read constantly. I read multiple books at once, and I just love learning more and more about how to have the best life possible and also learn the research to back it up. And I want to encourage all of you to do the same and to make the time to read. I put reading on my schedule every single day. I usually read before I go to bed. But when I'm in the car, it's also a nice time. I don't necessarily need to listen to music, especially if I'm by myself. Listening to a book is so much more fulfilling. So I'll be talking more about that once I get that arranged. But I just wanted to start hearing what you thought about it, so I'd love to hear read a comment from you, or hear one if you want to leave it on SpeakPipe. Leave a comment if you're interested in joining, and in the description field coming up, you will be able to click on the Google Plus link and join the Google Plus Book Club group, and that way you'll get all those specialized notifications. So I would love to hear any feedback from you on A, if you want to join, and B, what kind of books you want to read. Would you prefer written or audio? Anything that you want to chime in there. And the good news is Julieanna has joined us, and it looks like she got her lower third set up, which is amazing. Yes, there you are. I can hear your audio now. We'll get into the questions in just a minute, but I first wanted to do the two product shout-outs that I promised. Number one, a lot of you asked me about sunscreen. It's now June, it's getting hot, people are going to the beach. Sunscreen is great year-round, but especially during the summer is when we have a focus. And I've mentioned this a few times. I don't think I've actually shown you the product Suntegrity. This is my favorite brand and has been so for years and years. And I've never worked with them in a sponsorship form by any means, but I've met them in person. I meet so many people that love their products, so I'm just a massive fan, and I really would encourage you to try them. There's a link in the description field, of course, but a few things about them is that they're completely natural and holistic. In fact, EWG, aka the Environmental Working Group, has ranked them #1 for safe sunscreens for years and years. And that's what initially drew me into loving Suntegrity. But they're not just like a great natural sunscreen, they're really well made. They're super smooth. Their fragrances are very light, but there's no artificial fragrances. It's just this naturally great smell. They go on really smoothly. They last a really long time. And they also have this specific product that I'm showing you right now is a 5-in-1. It's a natural moisturizing facial sunscreen that has a tint to it. So if you want to put on a little bit of tint on your face, women especially, this is really, really nice for that. 5-in-1 means that it treats, hydrates, protects, primes, and covers your skin. And Suntegrity is completely free of parabens, phthalates, mineral oils, synthetic dyes, sulfates, etc. And it's just wonderful. They have products for children. They have products specifically for your face and for your entire body. So to learn more about them, you can click the description field below. The next thing I want to mention is juice. This is also great for the summer because this is specifically about a juice cleanse. And I've talked about juice cleanses here and there, and I'll link to more videos if you want to learn more. I'm not going to go into the details about benefits of doing juice cleanses, but really, just to summarize it, my look at it is that it's a nice time to give yourself a break, even if it's just for half of a day or a day, just to have something really gentle on your body but get a blast of nutrients. And I would love to hear Julieanna's perspective on this in a minute. But juices just in general are something I really enjoy. I love juices just as I love smoothies. Juices are basically just the fiberless version of it. I drink juices sometimes just casually if I want a beverage, or I'll drink it if I'm, especially in the morning. I love juices because I get all my nutrients at once when I'm not really that hungry. Personally, I'm not that hungry in the morning. But it's a nice way to get all of those nutrients that I need for that reason. I also just love the flavors. I love combining different fruits and vegetables together. So I juice a lot at home. However, I'm always looking for new juice companies to try out because I love the different ways that they play around with flavors and different nutrients and all of that. Recently, I got sent some from a company called Love Grace, and I just love them. Thus, the title really suits this company. They sent them to me in this nice eco-friendly package. I've been sent juices before in huge boxes with styrofoam, and it was really off-putting. But Love Grace sent it in this nice small box with just an insulated cooler, and it was sent from New York City where they're based, and it was still nice and fresh. The nice thing about these is that they're organic, they're raw, and they use HPP to keep them preserved. So there's no added preservatives in here. They're not heated, and HPP is high, I think, pressure processing is what it stands for, and it's just a nice way to retain the flavor without adding anything extra in and heating it up, so you still get the raw state and the organic, fresh aspect of it. And they say that these can last up to 21 days in your fridge, which is amazing. I'm sure the nutrients are going to degrade a little bit at that point, but it's still nice if you want to stock your fridge and have a juice on a daily basis. You're going off to work, you're on the go, or maybe you're going through a lazy period like I do every now and then. I talk more about these in my other channel, What a Vegan Eats, and I'll link to that video down below. That's basically a place where I talk about the foods that I'm eating, products that I'm enjoying. So if you want to hear more of the casual perspective that I give, that's all there, and you'll get the link down below. And I just want to say thank you to Love Grace for sending me these, and encourage you to check them out if you're interested in trying different juices. So, Julieanna, what is your quick take on juices? I'm very curious from a nutrition and dietitian standpoint.
I love juices. I think they're awesome. Nobody could argue that we need more fruits and vegetables. It's just a given. Like, none of us, or most of us, are not consuming even close to enough recommended fruits and vegetables. Cheers. And that's a great way to get them in. Some people that have sensitive sugar levels or whatnot, may want to do more veggie than fruit in their juice. But I think it's a wonderful way to get more fruits and vegetables, and I love them. I have them, but I would have them like separate. Like, I would make it kind of like a meal. Like, me too, I'm not hungry in the morning either, but that's the perfect first thing in the morning until you actually get a real big appetite, and it holds you over. It's a great way to wake up and detox, and the first thing that you're putting in your body is just pure magical nutrition.
I love that. What do you think about juice cleanses?
Oh, that's such a good question. There really isn't any research showing that they are effective. However, there's a lot of people that have done so and tried it and have had extraordinary results. Like, that movie Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, it kind of set off a huge, like just an epidemic. Everyone was buying juicers and it was like everyone was doing it. And, people do really well because if you're eating a standard American diet, and you go and take all of that junk out of your diet and you're just drinking fruits and vegetables, guess what? You're going to get better. And it's a great way to, kick off a new lifestyle. It's a great way to detox. But I don't think they're necessary. I think if you eat a clean, whole food, plant-based diet, you can have wonderful benefits as well, and you don't need to detox. But I think I've seen people have a lot of great results from it.
Wonderful. I love that perspective. Thank you so much. It's so nice to have Julieanna here to add in that really professional, well-researched and so much experience. And we'll talk more about everything that she does in a moment if you're not familiar with her yet. I also want to take this opportunity, Julieanna. It's funny because one of the past Q&As that you were here for, it was right before Mother's Day, and now Father's Day is tomorrow. So that's not going to be the theme of this video, unlike that Mother's Day video was, but I did want to take a moment to just give shout-outs to our fathers and maybe even perspectives on Father's Day. My dad is one of my biggest sources of inspiration, and I hope that sometimes he watches these videos or listens to them, which means so much to me. He'll like retweet my posts on Twitter and all of that, and he's just always been so supportive. And he's not someone that really cares for gifts, so it's amazing to just be able to call him or send him an email and just let him know that I'm thinking of him. That, for my dad, is the most important. So I don't have anything incredibly special planned for him. I just try to let him know that I love him on a regular basis and I appreciate him, and we have just had such a great relationship. So, Dad, if you're watching, I can't say enough about how much you mean to me, and I'm so grateful for all of the love and support you've given me throughout my whole life. Julieanna, how about your relationship with your dad? I don't know anything about your family history, but do you have anything that you'd like to say?
Yeah, my dad is a huge inspiration for me as well. We're very similar in personality. He's a CPA. He never understood what I do or what I wanted to do, but he's always supported me, and he's an amazing, brilliant, entrepreneurial, wise man who's helped a lot of people. And I love you, Dad. And it's also interesting to have a husband who's a father of my children, which is a completely different perspective. So my husband has his parents in town, so we're going to celebrate with my father-in-law. And it's nice to see my kids appreciating their dad on Father's Day. It's a whole other perspective, so it's nice.
Do you guys have anything planned for tomorrow?
Just we're gonna have brunch with the family, and today they're swimming so that we could do this and I could get some work done.
Nice.
But tomorrow we'll do a nice family brunch and we'll hang out with the kids tonight and just a family weekend.
I love that idea of planning a brunch, and I think that's another amazing way to celebrate people on these days. The media kind of promotes us giving gifts and encourages us because it's a nice way to generate money. But I feel like if you're going to spend money, maybe just spend it on some high-quality food. And so many people's parents are not nearly as healthy as we might want them to be. So creating a really healthy meal experience, taking them out to your favorite healthy restaurant, is a nice gift on its own. And I know my dad would really appreciate it if I were to make him breakfast or brunch, lunch or dinner, or all of the above on Father's Day. So, Julieanna, that's such a great gift that you're giving, and I would encourage anybody else watching to think about it. If you're far away, you could send a gift certificate, or you could make a meal suggestion. Maybe you can even do a virtual hangout during your meal. I've done that before. There's so many creative ways to use food to celebrate a special day, and you're going to be eating anyway, so it's really not doing something just to do it as a gift. It's doing something it's basically a gift from a much broader perspective, I think. Well, let's jump right into the questions because they always take so much longer than we expect them to, and I want to be able to get to anyone watching live. So once again, if you have questions you want to ask them at Google+. So that's google.com/plus-eco-vegan-gal. The links are again on Facebook and Twitter. You can ask your questions now, and we will get to them in about 20 to 30 minutes, and we'll answer as many as we can in the time that we have. We always try to wrap up within the hour if possible. But we have some really wonderful questions here today that I've been gathering for the past few weeks, and I'm thrilled to have Julieanna's perspective here. So number one, Julieanna and I both have a lot of experience with gluten-free eating. She wrote a whole book on this called what's The Idiot's Guide to Gluten-Free?
The Complete Idiot's Guide to Gluten-Free Vegan Cooking. It's a mouthful. Yeah.
It's a mouthful, and yet it's really specific for people that are gluten-free and vegan. And I think it's also neat because you might be gluten-free and then curious about veganism, and you might be vegan and curious about gluten-free eating. And we're not going to get into why eating gluten-free is important. If you want to learn more, we've both had plenty of videos and content about this, and of course there's Julieanna's book. I want to get into two questions here. One came from Erin, and Erin said, I'm trying to do gluten-free after recently going vegan. That's what I just said. My favorite grain food is bread. Do you have any suggestions for good gluten-free breads? I'm in Canada, so selection is limited. Shirley also asked a similar question. I am vegan and newly gluten-free, so it's kind of the opposite. What bread do you recommend? I used to love whole wheat bread and Ezekiel bread. So we're just going to give our quick answers to this. It's tricky to find good gluten-free vegan breads, and anybody watching, if you're in the Canada area, please leave a comment if you found one that you can suggest to Erin. My favorite bread, there's two places I've had amazing gluten-free vegan bread. One was this restaurant in Arizona that I might need to look up while Julieanna's answering. It's a vegan place. Maybe you know it, Julieanna. Is it called Loving Spoonfuls?
I haven't been in Arizona in a long time.
It's such a sweet restaurant. I think that's what it's called, but I'll double check. They make their own house-made gluten-free bread, and it was just mind-blowing. It was so good. And so you can probably order it if you can't just go to the restaurant. But if you're in the Arizona area, you must go. I think it wasn't Phoenix. I'll have to look it up. I don't remember the details.
That was a big plant-based population. Tucson has the big...
Yes, I think it might have been Tucson. And I believe the entire restaurant is vegan. It's definitely vegetarian. And I know people like T. Colin Campbell have recommended it before. So it's just a really healthy but delicious restaurant. As far as buying bread, there's one place that ships nationally, and they're based on the East Coast, and I can almost find them anywhere on the East Coast when I'm visiting there. In Massachusetts, I found them, Maryland, near the Baltimore area. They're based in Florida, and now I'm spacing on their name. So I'm going to go look that up while Julieanna's answering this question.
Okay, well, I do not like those commercial breads. I couldn't find one. They usually have the eggs in it, so they weren't vegan. And then the ones that were vegan and gluten-free just have so many different chemicals in them. So I kind of opted out of experimenting, so I can't answer with experience. But I was on a mission with this latest book that I'm editing right now that's coming out in January. I was on a mission to get a bread because my book is on plant-based. It's called the Vegetarian Diet. So how could you eat Mediterranean-style food without a good bread? So I worked and worked and worked and I made a recipe that's gluten-free vegan, very simple to do. So that's coming soon. But in the meanwhile, what I do, because I just, I don't like those other breads, I do whole grain tortillas, brown rice tortillas. Now they have the teff tortillas, corn tortillas. So I use those in place of bread. So I make everything into a wrap instead. I don't like those processed breads at all. And the other thing is, if you're gluten-free by choice, but you feel fine, there's a lot of different reasons that people go gluten-free. But if you are gluten-free just because you feel like you're supposed to, or you feel like it might be healthier, you're totally fine eating those sprouted breads like the Ezekiels. A lot of people, they're absorbed better because they're sprouted, so the anti-nutrients are removed and you can get it through your system much easier, and you shouldn't have any problems by eating those foods. So unless you have a real allergy or intolerance or celiac disease, then I would recommend switching out. And then of course you could do the whole grains like the intact grains, the quinoa and brown rice and all that kind of stuff, amaranth, all those instead of bread.
Great perspective. The two that I wanted to get back to you on, the restaurant is called Loving Spoonfuls, and it's in Tucson. Yes, you were right about that. And I believe, I mean, the whole restaurant had a Whole Foods perspective, so I don't think it was very processed because it was also made in-house. The other company is called D-Lands, and I'll link to both of these in the description field. And D-Lands, Julieanna, is so basic. It's basically like millet. It was like at most 5 ingredients, but it was mainly millet-based, like salt, and I don't even know if there was oil in it. It was like the most basic recipe there, and the bread isn't super intense or thick or anything, but it's perfect for sandwiches. I've made French toast with it. They make buns, and it's just like, to me, so satisfying. And I'm with you. I don't eat a ton of bread anymore because I don't feel the desire to, but when I'm back on the East Coast, I always get that bread because it's just satisfying to make like a gluten-free vegan TLT or French toast or something like that.
You're making me so hungry.
I know. We're going to get hungry in this talk. Moving on to, and complete switching gears, the next question are from 3 different people, and this is a very hot topic that we're going to try to condense into just a few minutes of a response. Catherine asked, what is the 80-10-10 diet? Barbie asked, what do you guys think about the 80-10-10 diet? And Julieanna asked, not this Julieanna, but a different Julieanna, what percentage of fat do you consume per day? I know it's important to keep fat low, but the only number I've ever heard from vegans is the raw 80-10-10 diet. I think my daily fat intake is around 20 to 25%. Real quick, because I want to turn this over to Julieanna for the main answer, but I've read the 80-10-10 diet book by Douglas Graham. I actually thought this was really well written. I went into it feeling a little like unsure about what I was going to find, but I felt like this was really well researched. There aren't a lot of books on 80-10-10. He's kind of cornered the market here, but there are a ton of YouTube channels about this. And I have to say, I appreciate 80-10-10, and there are a lot of perspectives in the book and in the community about it kind of taking this super whole foods, natural perspective. And when you look at it that way, thinking of eating mainly fruit, sometimes this diet is called a fruitarian diet. When you think about just eating mainly fresh fruit and getting your nutrients and your fiber and everything that you need from fruit and some vegetables, and having small amount of fats, there are aspects of that I think are really neat. I've tried 80-10-10 and journaled about it on the What a Vegan Eats channel. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't something that I have been able to get back into or sustain. Something always leads me back to cooked foods or eating, I don't know, I guess it's challenging for me. And not to say that I don't want to keep trying, but I've always kind of been on the fence, and I feel like a lot of the content out there is very opinion-based, and there's not a ton of solid research around it, which also keeps me skeptical. So what are your feelings, Julieanna?
Yeah, Whitney, that was a good summary. 80-10-10, let me answer the first question.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's a diet, it's a pretty much raw vegan diet. It's 80% carbohydrate, 10% protein, 10% fat, which is fine, and that's a nice ratio. We'll talk about the fat later because that's a really important. The third question was very important about how much fat, and which I just spent months analyzing the data, so I'd love to unload some of that because it's fascinating. But what's so interesting about this diet is it's considered also kind of like a mono diet, so he recommends eating a lot of like the same things. You're eating like 4 pounds of watermelon as breakfast, and 20 bananas. You may have seen like the banana girl, and they do this thing where they're doing just like massive amounts of fruit. And I know a lot of people, I've watched a lot of people eat this way, and I've eaten this way myself. I've tried it. I can't, it's too difficult for me as well. Like it's just, I like cooked foods as well personally, and but then there's so many, the research does not say that you need to eat this. It's kind of, to me, one of almost an extreme version of veganism. And I don't even want to classify it as a form of veganism. It is a very specific diet. And, there's not even research showing we need to be 100% raw to be healthy. And on the contrary, there's a lot of nutrients that are better absorbed cooked. So, and a lot of people thrive eating cooked foods and raw foods, and I do recommend eating a chunk of your foods, like at least half to 75% of your calories from raw foods anyway. But to stick to one food in massive doses in each meal is really challenging, first of all, for some people. It's not necessary because you can be absolutely healthy eating, a more wide variety. And at worst, I'm a little concerned about it because we don't have research on this long term, and you are missing some nutrients. There are some nutrients that you cannot get from eating just fruits and vegetables. There's just like a lot of minerals that might be missing, and I'm just concerned because I like to see it in the research that you could eat this way for many years and be healthy before I would recommend it. Now, if you feel great on it, it's better than a lot of other plans. People eating the standard American diet, this would be leaps and bounds better because there's a lot of nutrient deficiencies to be had on the standard American diet too. So I guess I would say it's controversial, and I would say it's something maybe if you're interested in to research well and make sure you are getting all of your nutrients, but it is not an easy way of going if you're going to do it 100%. That's my opinion.
So how about the fat side of it?
Let's talk about the fat side. 10% fat should be fine for most people. That's okay. On the contrary, you don't have to do 10% of your calories from fat. The research is broad. Like, this may be the biggest topic in nutrition research today, like in every type of eating category. And when I was doing the vegetarian diet, I'm doing it now, like trying to get to the answer of, do we need olive oil? How about all oil versus no oil? And I'm sticking to my guns on the no oil thing for a few reasons, which is a whole other topic. But essentially, there's research supporting, a very low-fat diet. 10% is considered a very low-fat diet. People on the Dean Ornish diet and on Esselstyn's diet, who are people that were already very sick, very advanced heart disease, they thrived going very low fat because A, they were cleaning out their arteries, they were already sick. B, they were just like, they were recovering, so they were eating, they were losing weight and all that stuff. So losing weight is a good way to lose weight is to cut out on fat because fat has more calories per gram. So eating, basically the research agrees that like 20-25%, like the person that asked that question is consuming, is probably ideal for the majority of the population. If you're healthy, your arteries are clean, 25-30%, fine. The research shows that it's fine, that a wide variety of different types of fats, different percentages of fat are fine. What's the most important thing is not how much fat, really. You don't want to go above 30%, but the most important thing is where you're getting your fats from, the types of fat. Now, we know saturated fats still are not healthy. They are the ones that are atherogenic. They cause heart disease. They promote all sorts of disease. Same with trans fats. Okay, trans fats, we've already, I think it's pretty much made a stamp. They're taking it off the market. We know that that's unhealthy. But those are mostly in processed foods anyway. We shouldn't be eating those anyway. But we want to get our fats from polyunsaturated, the omega-3s, omega-6s. Those are the only essential fats that we require. But also monounsaturated fats found in avocados, olives. Those are health-promoting fats as well, but they're not essential. So the only essentials are the omega-3s and only omega-6s. And it gets really complicated. We could make it really complicated, but I could just to simplify it for time's sake. There's going to be all delineated in my book. I spent so much time on this, and I'm still spending time on it because it's so complex. Really, you want to get your fats from seeds and nuts, about an ounce of nuts a day, or a tablespoon or two of seeds, especially chia, flax, or hemp, because they've got the high doses of omega-3 fats. And leafy greens have healthy fats. Avocado, a little bit of avocado, but you don't want to focus on getting more fat. I remember that when I was a kid, my grandma, who was always on every diet, and she was on Weight Watchers at the time, I was at her house in Florida, and she took up her tablespoon of mayonnaise and ate it. And I'm like, Grandma, what are you doing? Why are you eating mayonnaise from a spoon? And she said that she was getting her fat for the day. So there's so much misconception and confusion around fat. But not to make this belabored, but really it's the kind of fat. So you want to be eating it from whole plant food sources, and you want to keep it under 30, under 25% is a good number. 10% is fine too, especially if you're trying to lose weight, especially if you're, have heart disease or high cholesterol. That's a great way to lower it, is by lowering your fat intake. But the research is very fascinating, and there's a whole world out there. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. I think that's a great answer. Juliana, just a quick moment. I can't tell if it's my internet connection or yours, but there seems to, do I seem okay on your end? Am I coming through clearly or am I breaking up?
Yeah, you were clear. You got fuzzy for a second, but you're clear now.
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can. Yes. You can't hear me? Should I log out and come back?
Do you want to try maybe closing out of the window, or even if it's not too much of a hassle, maybe try restarting your internet so that we can go smoothly for the rest of the time, and then we'll just come back around to the questions.
Okay, I'll be back. Okay.
Oh, I lost her. Okay. Okay. So in the meantime, I hope that it's not my internet connection. If anybody's having trouble hearing me, please let me know in the Google Plus comments so that if necessary, I can reboot, and maybe we'd have to make this part 1 and part 2. But let me know if you're having trouble. I want to make sure that you get the clearest experience possible. I'm going to come back. We have one more topic regarding food specifically that we're going to address. In the meantime, let's move over to the next section, which is the love section. And we have 2 similar questions here. One is from Reese, and Reese asked, how can I get my wife to eat better? I'm vegan, but she's still loving the saturated fat, dairy, and salty snacks. And V asked, my cousins are interested in being vegan, but their mom doesn't like cooking. What would be your advice for her to be inspired to cook vegan meals? And they will be living with me for a month this summer, so how do you suggest I inspire them? Julianna's going to chime in with this too, but real quick from my perspective, I think that the best way is to lead by example always. To make vegan and healthy eating seems super easy and fun and delicious, satisfying, all of that, so that people, taking away those stigmas of it being too hard to do, not pleasant, not satisfying, showing them the foods that they can enjoy and maybe the alternatives to the food. So when Reese said that his wife is still having a lot of saturated fat, dairy, and salty snacks, show him, as Juliana was just talking about, all the delicious whole foods varieties of fats. Avocados are one of the most satisfying fats. Nuts are so fantastic for that reason. And also showing them the information around the oil-free diet. So T. Colin Campbell's great for that. Dr. Esselstyn's wonderful for that. I believe John McDougall is all about oil-free as well too. So we'll talk about the Starch Solution in a minute with Juliana. And of course 80-10-10. So maybe finding some books, some videos. Forks Over Knives is a fantastic video for this, and that's also great for encouraging anyone to think about adopting adopting. I always say adapting or adopting a plant-based diet there. Sometimes that's not enough, and I think it's taking away the pressure for somebody to do what you're doing and really just leading by example, as I said, and just making it seem like you're enjoying it, and maybe they'll want to try it because you're enjoying it. Stop focusing on anything negative and make it all about how much you're loving what you're doing and what you're eating, and that's usually how people get most fascinated by it. If you want to swap out salty snacks for foods that don't have any salt, or are using whole foods with a little bit of salt in it that still have that salt balance, you can look into that. As far as dairy goes, there's just so many alternatives to dairy, so maybe stocking fridges with all these amazing dairy products like the milks and the ice creams and the yogurts and all of that. That helps a lot. That's helped my mother transition away from eating dairy. As far as having cousins or friends that have like a mother that are going to be cooking, if you're younger and a parent is in charge of the food, I think it's really just making suggestions. Hey, why don't we make this? Hey, I love these veggie burgers. Do you mind grilling these up, cooking these up? I have this recipe that I absolutely love. Here it is. Let's go shopping for the ingredients and make this together. And you don't even need to talk about why, just talk about how much you love to eat the food. Ultimately, I find with a lot of elders, whether they're like my grandparents, for example, were like this a lot. My grandmother, when she was alive, would stress out a lot about what to make me. And really, I either just had to bring my own food or just tell her what I wanted her to make and what I would eat. And that took the pressure off. It wasn't scary, intimidating, and I would just let her know that I felt like I really enjoyed the food, and so that was what she wanted. She wanted me to enjoy food, and she wanted to be part of it. Juliana, I just was giving my perspective on those two questions about how can I get my wife to eat better and how can I encourage a mother to cook more vegan meals for me and my cousins. I know you had a really quick input on that, so I would love to hear your feelings.
I feel like, you could lead a horse to water because I don't know, let's see. If someone comes and they want to change and they want to eat healthier, that's a whole other perspective than trying to enforce it. And I think that I've had a really hard time trying to convince people that weren't interested in listening. And I feel like people get very defensive when it's, you need to do this, I think you should do this, my opinion, my opinion, my opinion, when no one's asking for it. So I found that it's better to role model. I think the number one thing is role modeling healthy choices. Is this for like two people living in the same home that are, what was the question? It's a husband and a wife?
One was a wife. One was a wife and one was people that were coming to visit and wanting to encourage their mother, who I guess was coming with them, to make cooking vegan meals.
So I think in both of those cases, the role modeling is ideal. Like winning them over with their stomachs is always a good thing. Like for the visiting would be like cooking up, a mad delicious cuisine while they're there, and they're going to be like, wow, what's this? And that opens up the discussion for, oh, and it's actually really healthy, or, oh, and I love cooking this way, and making it look easy and making it taste delicious, and that's just going to inspire them. Just the food is I think it's the most effective way. If you have hands-on opportunity to woo them with delicious cuisine, that's the best way. But in the long run, like with my husband, we've talked about this before. He doesn't want to eat the way I want to eat, and so it's a challenge. And so I backed off a long time ago, and I just try to, bring in good food, make good food, and win with my better cholesterol levels when we do our blood work.
I'll link to the video where Julieanna talked about her relationship with her husband and her children and that vegan journey below for those of you who want to learn more. Moving on, I want to come back to the eat category that we were wrapping up after 80-10-10. And somebody asked, the username Cleasy19 asked, what are your opinions of the Starch Solution? And I assume they meant this book by John McDougall and Mary McDougall. Remind me, Juliana, John McDougall also follows the oil-free perspective?
Yes, he's pretty similar. So he would be probably about 80% carbs, 10% protein, 10% fat as well.
Okay.
So it's a similar composition.
It's almost like a cooked food version of 80-10, of the 80-10 fruitarian diet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So as far as this book goes, I haven't made my way through it yet. I've only read maybe a chapter or two. I've been meaning to read it, so I think I need to get on that so I can answer this question better. But I did see John speak. He's a fantastic speaker when this book first came out, and I was so compelled. My favorite part about this book is he talks a lot about the history that he's done and the research he's found about how starch has played a role in our diet. And I don't know if you've read this completely, Juliana, but I know that you know a lot about John McDougall in general. For those of you who are interested in the book, of course, it'll be linked down below, as well as links to John's online talks, which are really worth a listen. What is your perspective on the Starch Solution, Juliana?
Yes, I've read his books. I've seen him speak many times. I've interviewed him several times as well, and he's absolutely brilliant, and he has been in this field for many, many decades, and he's helped thousands of people go from very, very sick to very, very healthy. He outlines in this book very well how throughout time, throughout history, we have been on starch-based diets. So people are so afraid of carbs and starches, and people are literally like traumatized. Oh, I don't eat bad carbs, and I don't eat carbs. And he debunks all of that and why it's so nonsensical to think that we need to be eating meats and fats and ignoring stuff like corn and brown rice and stuff we've been eating literally since the beginning of time. And I looked into this research as well, since the beginning of time, since BC, thousands of years, like all we have recorded, we have skeletal remains, like there's just so much evidence showing that, you know, we ate these kinds of foods. And now, depending on where in the world, what the starch focus was, you know, some cultures focus on potatoes and some focused on, you know, maize. And so it just depends on where in the world, but it's always been a carbohydrate-rich, starch-based diet. And I think it's got so much value. And if people would just go back to recognizing that this whole low-carb thing is very recent and really not established at all as healthy, it would change everything. You know, if we could eat more starch and we could eat more plants and not worry about, you know, ketosis and all these horrible things that these researchers, not even researchers, these are like journalists that are coming up with these books, these low-carb books and Atkins and all that. That is the worst thing we could do to our bodies. So this is a great wake-up call. Dr. McDougall writes very well. Like, his articles, his books are very easy to read and very it knocks any, you know, curiosity out. It's like, oh yeah, duh, of course. Like, he's very great. He's an amazing man. Highly recommend.
Well, that's quite a rave review there. Well, now I want to finish reading this book. Okay, so we don't have a ton of time left, and I want to make sure we leave time for the live questions. So we're going to knock out these last few as quickly as possible. And I do want to remind all of you, as Julieanna can speak to, that she is available for one-on-one consulting. We actually had a variety of questions we are thinking of talking about today, but Julieanna wanted to get more information about them. So if your question isn't answered and it's specific about things like food intolerances, allergies, specific things that you're sensitive to and want to understand how to incorporate your diet, I want to encourage you to check out Julieanna's website, contact her, and have a one-on-one with her, because as you can see, she's a wealth of information and she's really going to get to the bottom, but it's going to take a little bit more of a back and forth than we're able to provide with these Q&As. However, one topic we can do a quick summary of, because this is something that Julieanna has a lot of knowledge in, is weight loss. So these fall into kind of the look category of Eco Vegan Gal, and there's two questions here. One comes from Patrick, who says, I'm vegan, but how can I stop eating when I'm not hungry? Because I feel as if I eat too much, even though I work out and I'm eating a high-carb, low-fat diet. Julie said, I'm a medical student who has always struggled with weight, and I recently switched over to a mostly plant-based diet a few months ago. I just wanted to ask how long it took for your weight to go down. I've always found it impossible to lose weight unless I ate 0 carbs or ate around 1,200 calories a day, none of which were sustainable. I'm hoping that eating healthfully will help me lose weight in addition to making me feel great, but I haven't made a ton of progress yet. And she wanted to know what my experience was. I have a whole video on my weight loss journey because that was something that was very compelling about the vegetarian and vegan diets, because I started slimming down and no longer had quite as many emotional struggles with my weight as I did when I was growing up. And I attribute that greatly to sensitivities. I was very sensitive to dairy, gluten, and soy. Well, of course, gluten and soy were part of my vegan diet for a few years until I realized that. But in the beginning, just simply taking dairy and meat out of my diet made a profound impact. And also, in addition, from a vegan standpoint and a gluten-free standpoint, both helped me avoid a lot of processed foods that contained a lot of sugar and salt and fat in them. Even though you can find plenty of really processed vegan foods and gluten-free foods, I was leaning naturally more towards the healthier foods for whatever reason, and that helped me a lot. So it wasn't necessarily entirely about going vegan or gluten-free. It was that transitioning my mind away from the processed foods and eating things that are in their whole state and that were naturally sweetened, or instead of having oils, I was just eating the whole foods versions of it. I was eating less salt, and all of that combined has helped me a lot and helped me make the most progress. And you already know Julieanna's perspective on carbs, but what else do you feel like you can add to this weight loss topic that, you know, we could do a whole video on this, and maybe we should, because Julieanna is such a wealth of information, but what would you want to add, your little tidbits for today?
Yeah, this is a huge topic, and we could go on and on for sure. I think that'd be a great idea to do a video on it. There's a lot involved, and you could break it down into 2 components. First, you could break it down into the food, and then secondly, the emotional part of it. So let's talk about the food first. Yes, that's one of the reasons I recommend getting rid of oil. Oil is pure fat, 100%, just pure calories that we don't need, and easiest way to drop hundreds, if not thousands of calories from your diet a week. 120 calories per tablespoon, 1,000 calories per half a cup. It adds up really quickly. So it's an easy thing to knock out a bunch of calories, because the calorie equation absolutely exists. No matter, people try to say, no, calories don't count. They do. They absolutely, you cannot debunk physics, basic science. There's limitless arguments and research. There's no question that calories count. So that being said, there's this whole element of the behavioral component, and this is where a lot of people need to focus, myself included. I mean, I'm not exempt from this, and I've gone through this my whole life too. So I'm actually starting this startup. I'm working for this startup company called Habitera, and we're launching this next week, and it's all about weight loss, and it's all about habits. So there's a lot of hot evidence and stuff coming up in Silicon Valley about habits, and this breaking research that it's everything. Like, if you can kick off a habit and make it a part of your day, not only breaking down habits, but starting new healthy habits, it kind of reframes your whole life. So it's a good way to get in touch with that for getting rid of emotional behavioral eating. For instance, a good example is when you're done eating, at dinner, when you put your plate down, you go brush your teeth immediately. Like, that's a habit. So it's like little things like that that trigger you to be done eating. But there's also the element of, processed foods, like you said, with those concentrated sugars and fats and stuff, they are intentionally designed to make you crave them, and it makes it so much harder to stop eating them. So, cutting out processed foods and going for the whole foods is the best thing you could do food-wise. And habit-wise and behavioral-wise, focus on building healthy habits, knocking down bad habits, and really it takes 3-4 weeks to get them into your day, but just doing it every single day, and that's what we're going to be doing with our new program. And you're accountable to someone, you're accountable to an app, or you're accountable to a dietitian. That whole concept is really, we're seeing huge results from this. They did a trial run. It was very effective. I've been implementing it into my counseling, and very effective, just doing something every day. And there was another element that I wanted to talk about, behavioral. Oh, the other thing is I developed this whole concept for my book too, called Achieve. It's about, how, when you're going to eat and you're not hungry, you've got to sidetrack yourself. Why do you want to eat? So I recommend keeping a detailed food journal for a while with emotions attached. So like, you're eating because, what are you eating? What time are you eating? Why are you eating? Are you truly hungry? Because eating when we're not hungry and eating over past full that's it. You're eating too many calories. That's the way to know that you're overeating, because our bodies want to eat just enough. We want to maintain homeostasis. We want to stay the way we are. So if we're pushing past full, or we're eating more than we need to, we're going to gain weight. Our body knows that, and that's what it's trying to tell you to stop. So distracting yourself, coming up with a list of things you love to do that are exciting and sexy for you besides eating, taking a wonderful bath with candles and all that, or, calling your best friend, or seeing a movie, or just reading a fun magazine that has nothing, productive about it, or something that will make you excited to do. Make a list of things like that you'll want to do, and save them for those times when you're like, I want to eat, and I think it's just because I'm stressed out. Go to your list, your emergency list, and say, I'm going to do this instead,
Yeah.
And exercising, of course, is important too, but it's a lot of behavioral stuff, and training yourself, and dealing with the emotional reasons that you're eating, dealing if you have major stress, figure out why. You have that video you did on time management. Maybe you need to focus on time management. If you need maybe, psychological training or help, just support, to have someone to talk to. I mean, I see someone every week now. It's been helping me too, just to deal with my stress. But, emotions are not a reason to eat, but it's one of the biggest reasons a lot of people overeat. And getting to the bottom of why, and then figuring out what to do instead of eating, it's a process. It's like studying yourself and figuring out what you can do to succeed, but acknowledging that that's true, and without judgment, I'm really just depressed right now, and I just want to eat ice cream so I feel better. But that you're going to eat the ice cream and feel worse because you're still depressed, because you haven't addressed the depression, and you've eaten ice cream. So there's so many emotional, behavioral elements to overeating that need to be kind of, sprinkled out and put on the table, and look at it with open, non-judgmental eyes. and then figuring out a strategy to overcome those or just to deal with them when they happen. They're going to happen. It's part of life. It's how we've built our society. So it's very common.
Well, I think that whole concept of emotional eating too is so tied into the reason why some people struggle with adopting a plant-based diet. I keep switching my words up there. It's not adapting something, but you know, I've noticed that it's so much about what's ingrained in our mentality and our emotions, and people struggling to switch over to a different diet or adapt their diet a little bit. And adapt would actually make sense in this sense because you're changing it. But having that said, I feel like people are just attached to certain foods, and this is going to bring issues no matter what type of foods they're eating. If you're having trouble losing weight, as Julieanna said, it's so connected to your emotions around the foods that you keep eating. The sugars, the salts, the oils, the pizzas, the ice creams, and whatnot, all of that, on and on. People are very connected to meat and dairy for whatever reason, and that's a whole nother story. So I think it is getting down to the root of what's going on with your emotions. And remember, many people, including myself on a deep level, experience profound shifts in their emotions when you clean out your diet. So you're not, it's kind of like it goes both ways. In one way, it's important to get to the root of your emotions, and then your food will have a better, your whole body and the way that you eat will respond to that. I also feel like when you eat healthier, you respond to that as well emotionally, and you are experiencing something on a whole new level because your body's really getting the true fuel that it needs by focusing on whole foods as opposed to all these processed foods, which has causes such a big issue. I'm going to do a separate video review on this book that I was sent recently called Stop the Torment, and I think, Julieanna, you would be interested in this. It's a new, I think, self-published book or smaller publisher, and it's really amazing. It's not about veganism, it's just about all of the things that you mentioned, the emotional sides, and making things a habit or a ritual, and all the little shifts that we can make in our minds that can help affect our weight and how we eat and all of that. So stay tuned for that for anybody who wants to learn more. The last two topics we're going to talk about before we open it up to questions. I see there are only a few, but just as a reminder, if you have questions, ask them on google.com/+ecovegangal. And if you are watching or listening to the recorded version of this, there's a bit.ly link in the description field where you can ask for the future. And the last two topics I feel like could be a whole new video on their own, so maybe, Julieanna, we can try to do that because I'm sure you have a lot to say. Two people asked similar questions. One came from Sydney, who said, should I look into nutrient supplements? And Mike, who said, I was wondering what your thought process or research says about supplements, not for mass or body change, but as in tablets for nutritional insurance that you're getting all the nutrients you need in a day. I personally don't take supplements on a regular basis except for vitamin B12. That's pretty much the thing that I'm trying to be most consistent about. I do occasionally dabble in like a full spectrum supplement for veganism just because it's simple or I want to try it out, but I've never felt the need for it. I've had my blood tested many times. No doctor has really recommended it. I haven't even been low in B12, but I'm still taking it to to make sure that I'm getting it, which as Julieanna has spoken about in other videos is important. What is your perspective on nutrient supplements? The small condensed version of it for this specific video.
Okay, yeah, very similar to yours. Please, if you're vegan, please take a vitamin B12 supplement. 2,000 to 2,500 micrograms a week. We cannot get it from plants at this point the way we have clean our produce. And we're not eating dirt, so we need to have B12. We will not get it other ways. You will not show up in your labs as having a B12 deficiency until it's probably too late. That's when it likely happens. We're seeing lots of B12 deficiency in vegans because they're not taking B12. So even the fortified foods, it's not a number that it's not reliable. So highly recommend begging. Why do something to yourself when you don't have to? Why you don't want neurological problems? It's very important. Very easy solution, very affordable. Just get any kind of B12, take 1,000 micrograms 2 to 3 times a week. That's the easiest way to do it. Okay. Great. Vitamin D, because we're not in the sun enough, because we have you know, all sorts of stuff going on with environmentally. We really don't know why, but there happens to be a huge majority of the world's population who happens to be deficient in vitamin D. Researchers are stumped. You know, there's been so much on this. It's like the vitamin du jour is vitamin D. And I have a whole lecture on this, so I won't go on and on. But if you are
available online?
No, it's just a lecture.
Can people watch it?
Oh, I have. Yeah, I did a little video on vitamin D. I could give you the link to that. Yes.
Okay, good.
But to make it short, I recommend not just blindly supplementing. I don't like supplements at all if you don't have to, except for B12. What I recommend is going to your doctor next time you get your labs drawn, asking for vitamin D if they're not already drawing it. If you're lower than 35-ish, 30, some doctors say 40, then take a supplement to get your numbers back up. I do, you know, just be on top of it. If you can get sun and you're in a good latitude, try it, but check, because I know I'm in Los Angeles, we're in Los Angeles, a lot of my clients in Los Angeles, plenty of sun, sunroof down, and they still get D deficiency, craziest thing. So that's another thing. The other thing is, on a vegan diet, because of our soils and everything, you know, there's a potential that people are not getting enough iodine, because unless you're eating sea vegetables, it's hard to get enough iodine from the soil now. So make sure you're trying to get iodine in your diet, and if you're not, you may consider taking a supplement for that. We only need, I think it's 150 micrograms a day. It's not much, but you know, to protect your thyroid and everything, it's something good to kind of consider. But most people don't need to supplement, just maybe get some sea vegetables. I use those Eden beans, the Eden canned beans, because they're organic and they're BPA-free cans, and they use sea vegetables instead of salt. So it's a good way to get your iodine from that, and I love those beans. So that's it. I mean, really, I don't think people need to supplement. I think if you're eating a whole food plant-based diet, you're getting variety, you're eating plenty of greens and beans, you're going to get everything you need to get. You know, and you eat a tablespoon or two of those seeds like we talked about before, and you know, or a handful of walnuts. You know, you're going to get your omega-3s. But just eating a wide variety of health-promoting foods, you should be good to go. And B12.
Yes, and some sunshine.
And some sunshine.
Well, on the same topic, Catherine asked, has anyone felt the need to use probiotics? I think probiotics are great, but you can get them in a lot of different foods, like kombucha, for example, something I really love. You can get them in plant-based versions of yogurts. They're going to have that in there. And I have done reviews in the past. I'll link to a review to a pretty solid probiotic line. You know, it's not something I've felt the necessity to have on that regular basis, but I think personally it's helpful for digestion. So I look forward to foods that are in that state. And I believe also tempeh is naturally rich in probiotics. Is that true, Julieanna?
It's fermented.
Things like fermented foods.
I think it's more prebiotics than probiotics. So it's prebiotics are the food for probiotics, or for your gut. To feed the healthy bacteria in your gut, basically.
Right. So what is your perspective on probiotics, and is there a need for it versus like a desire for it?
Oh, I think it does amazing things. It can do tremendous things for people. It's so interesting because this research too is huge and dense, and we don't know exactly what, you know, dose and how many billions of colonies of this one or that one. So there's so many different bacteria. So it's a whole wonderful, fascinating world. And I think that the gut microbiome is going to be like the wave of medical future, because how our bacteria are in our body are, you know, inspired by what we eat, our environment, how we exercise. There's a study that came out this week too. So, but people that have GI issues or have taken antibiotics or have just kind of some kind of dysbiotic kind of symptoms, like basically when you're not feeling good GI-wise, it can be amazing. I've seen that with so many of my clients, myself included. Because I have some intolerances like gluten, and when I started taking a probiotic just a year ago, wow, it's just amazing. So yeah, I definitely recommend them. I can't tell you which ones because it depends on why you're taking them. I kept playing with them until I found one that helped me. And that's what I basically do with my clients. We kind of play around with different ones until you find a formula that works. I don't think everyone needs them, but I think some people claim and swear by the fact that they get sick less often. I don't doubt it. I think they really have potential to do a lot of good.
Well, yeah, because so much is based in our digestive tract. I mean, there's a lot going on there, and especially if you're transitioning to the plant-based diet and whole foods, getting away from the processed foods, you have a lot of healing to do in your gut. And I think most of this can be done by eating the whole foods in general, but probiotics, as you're saying, are so supportive in that. And if you're going through any sort of digestive struggles, then adding those in can make a huge difference. And I think what Juliana is also saying here is it's something that you need to speak over with some sort of a professional and not just try to like self-medicate and evaluate. So again, another reason to consult with Juliana or to find a naturopathic doctor or a doctor that's naturally minded to help assist you through that. But it sounds like what you're also saying is it's safe to play around with different formulas and see how they affect you. Would you agree? Is that really what you're getting at as well?
Yeah, I think
Just
that's
kind of experimenting.
yes, because I haven't heard of any. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of research suggesting that they could be harmful. I don't think I've ever seen it being harmful. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's safe. I mean, just go for a formula that's well known. That's you can look it up and look on Consumer Reports and make sure that it's not hasn't. It's not like as long as it's not mixed with a million other things. Like I don't like formulas that have these herbs and these things that those are risky. My husband sees kidneys and we've seen livers that are so toxic from all these herbs and stuff. But probiotics, pure just probiotics, can be absolutely. I totally recommend it. Testing it out.
Wonderful. I'm glad to hear your perspective on that. Well, we are going to need to wrap up, and we only have a few live questions. If anybody else is waiting to jump in at google.com/plus.ecovegangal.com or leave a question for a future. I love having Julieanna here, so hopefully she'll continue joining in every once in a while. But I did see a few things here. One quick one came from Haley, who said, what do you think is healthiest, Starch Solution or fully raw? And I believe by fully raw, referring to the 80-10-10/fruitarian. I believe that Julieanna will say that they're both very similar. One is basically just cooked versus raw. Is that what you would say?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone needs to be fully raw. If you want to try it, that's fine. Like I said, I think you could still be missing some nutrients. And I think if you're gonna try fully raw, try sprouting and doing sprouted legumes and sprouted grains just to get those in and get those nutrients in there, and fermenting and all that stuff. Like go all the way if you're gonna do it. Like do the stuff to make sure you're getting everything in. But I'm not comfortable. I wouldn't recommend 80-10-10, the 80-10-10 we were talking about. That's just the mono diet. I wouldn't recommend that to anyone that's in a health condition, or I don't think I would recommend it. I just don't recommend it. But I recommend a lot of those foods. Definitely lots of fruits and vegetables. Definitely at least 50 to 75% of your diet from raw foods. Excellent, important. There's things that are in raw foods that get destroyed with cooking. It's an important way to get these special nutrients and cancer-fighting properties into your system by eating them raw. So definitely lots of raw. Love the Starch Solution because I love, cooked grains are filling. Legumes are fabulous. Fiber, lots of very satiating. It's an excellent way. You could eat so many different foods if you incorporate some cooked ones. Like there's so much to be said for a healthy soup. I can't even tell you. Like soup is one of the foods because the minerals that come out are still in the broth, so you're still getting a lot of those nutrients. So soups and salads. That's my take on it.
And Haley, if you didn't have a chance to tune in earlier, if you watch the recorded video, Julieanna talks about this more in depth as well. And Julia, your lower third took away your website, so you might want to add that in so that people can find that. And it'll also be in the description field, of course. So real quick, Mary's Test Kitchen, another YouTube channel I love, so check her out as well. She's so wonderful. She just said she doesn't have a question, but to the Canadian who was looking for vegan gluten-free bread, she linked to Silver Hills Bakery. And yeah, it looks like they are available in Canada, and you can get them in the US as well. They have some gluten-free, and I think they're relatively new to offering vegan gluten-free. Or perhaps it was the other way around. Maybe they've always been vegan but haven't always been gluten-free. They've had the sprouted breads for a while from what I remember. So thank you for chiming in. And anyone else who wants to chime in from Canada about that question, great. There's just one more last question. It comes from Marilyn, and she says, is it all right to eat fish if you can eat meat or chicken? Or maybe she meant if you can't eat it. Or you can't eat it because it also has a face. I'm a little confused with the question, Marilyn, but Juliana and I are both advocate for the plant-based diet, which does not include fish. And as far as meat and chicken, that falls into that same category. The whole concept of eating food with a face is something I recently addressed in a video, which I'll link below in the description, or you can find on the Eco Vegan Gal YouTube channel. I think that that's a big part of our passion. In addition, Juliana and I are also very passionate about health, as you can see. But for us, I believe there's also that kind of ethical compassion standpoint of eating food with a face. As far as I'm not sure if that's what you mean, but I'll just quickly say, yes, fish does have a face. So for me, it doesn't feel all right, but that's a personal decision. As far as a health standpoint, we've talked about this in the past with Julieanna about things like omega-3s and all of that, and avoiding it and getting it through plant-based sources like nuts and all on and on. So it's not necessarily a matter of being all right, because whether you choose to think something's all right is always a personal decision. And from a nutritional standpoint, I think Julieanna and I will both agree that it's not necessary to eat fish. But Julieanna, is there anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think well said, and I think I have to add the fact that our oceans are no longer what they were, and they have become literally dumping grounds for all the toxins that is in our world that just permeates our air, our water, our rain. I mean, we've got radiation in our oceans now. We've got radiation now from two ends, from Chernobyl. There's still radiation from there, and now there's radiation from Fukushima that's flowing now. It's on the west coast, so it's in the fish. And there is mercury and dioxin and DDT and PCBs and stuff that is horrible for our bodies that we do not want into our bodies. So we have a huge ethical thing because we are quickly overfishing our oceans, and we are literally about to run out of fish. Experts estimate by 2000, I want to say 30, it might be 2050, but in the next couple decades, we are going to be out of fish, and that doesn't only affect our oceans, it affects our climate, it affects, I mean, there's so many ethical issues about our fishing and our fish decisions. But secondly, first of all, we don't need it. Second of all, you don't want that stuff in your body, so you don't need it. The fish get those omega-3s by eating marine algae. That algae is what they're eating and why it's in their flesh, so we can get that directly. We can get the omega-3s from plant foods, and we can get it from algal oil if you're concerned. But even the fish oil trials just came out last year. There were studies, 2012, I think, and just another recent one debunking that they do anything health promoting anyway, the fish oil supplement. So yeah. We've completely destroyed our oceans, getting all that fish oil out of these fish, and all for naught. So it's not necessary, not healthy, and I do not recommend. And by the way, I know so many people, both my parents included, that when you get tested for mercury, if you're eating fish regularly, and not even like every day, just regularly, I know so many people that because I asked them, I was curious, they got mercury tested, they had mercury poisoning.
Wow.
So you realize it's there.
Yeah, I forget what I was reading recently. I'll link to it when I think of it, but there was I read so many books now that it's just like on and on and on, but it was talking about that very thing about how kids just get tested and they are having behavioral issues. And it might have even been a book that wasn't even about veganism, I think, now that I'm recalling it. It's an epidemic. It's a huge issue with people, and they do get tested. Kids get tested, and it's affecting so many aspects of this. So it's a frightening thing, and if you don't need to eat something, you're really just eating it because of a desire for it. So if you can switch that desire, as we've talked about, with this emotional side of eating, and eat foods that are good for your body, good for the planet, and don't harm any animals, I think that's really the biggest standpoint here, is with people like Julieanna showing the nutrition side of it and doing the research, and again, coming back to someone like John McDougall, who is also great wealth of information from this as a doctor, it's really amazing just to have that confidence and to realize it's just not necessary. And if we can get everything that we need except for something like B12, which even meat eaters have been found to be deficient in, our perspective is really, why not switch over? Why not prevent a lot of these issues that people who are eating animal products are having, and feel better about yourself, lose weight, protect the environment, take care of animals. It just comes back to that whole philosophy here. So we're going to wrap things up. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Definitely check out Julieanna, and all of her information is going to be linked in the description below. I just got one last question, though. We might need to address this in a future video, but I just wanted to acknowledge from username Rodeo44 Rodeo, I don't know, Rodeo Roo or Road Roo. It's a complicated username, but anyways, this question was, my boyfriend watched Forks Over Knives with me. Now he wants to try eating mostly vegan, but he struggles a lot. Do you have tips for how he can get over the struggles? I can only see him a few times a week. We have addressed this a little bit in this video, so if you go back to the recording once it's up, you will see a little bit about how to inspire other people to eat healthier and to eat vegan and all of that. And we've talked about this in past videos. This actually leads to the wrap-up I was going to do anyways, which is finding more information. So both Julieanna and I have websites, ecovegangal.com, and Julieanna's is plantbaseddietitian.com. I have a weekly newsletter, and I'm trying to encourage Julieanna to do the same. You can sign up for mine in the meantime, and I'll let you know when Julieanna's is available, where you can get all this information directly to your inbox, so you don't have to constantly seek it out, but just have it show up there and get articles and reviews and video notifications and all that. It's once a week or once a month, depending on your preference, and that way you just have it there and feel inspired, get the knowledge that you need. We are also both on social media. Julieanna has an incredible presence on Facebook. It's so inspirational and knowledgeable. She also has a YouTube channel, so if you haven't subscribed to Eco Vegan Gal, do that, and then subscribe to Julieanna's, which again will be linked down below. Check out us on your favorite social media networks, because we're packing them with inspirational tips and knowledge, and having you be part of the community. I love Julieanna's community on Facebook specifically. It's just so amazing how engaged people are in the conversations, the comments, the questions. So if you're into Facebook, check her out there. I think you'll be really impressed. We really are grateful for you being here today, and I'm personally so grateful for you, Julieanna, for bringing in all of your wisdom and experience over and over again. I love having you.
I love being here. Thank you, Whitney.
So if you guys want to see her on the show more frequently, let us know, and we will do our best to make that happen as soon as possible. Do you have any other closing words, Julieanna? Anything I left out? You do have all those fantastic books as well. I see some behind you, and if anybody's into reading books, you can check them out.
Yes.
So again, all of that information is on her website. Well, that is it for today. Thank you so much. Be sure to tune in every Saturday for these weekly Q&As, and I will be having other people on. I have 2 other people scheduled for the future, so stay tuned for those announcements. And if you have questions that we haven't addressed, weren't able to address today, and are coming to your mind after watching this video, check out the bit.ly link in the description field, which you can submit your question for the future so we can get to that. Have a fantastic weekend, everybody, or day whenever you're watching this. Thank you for being part of making the world a better place by shifting things within yourself. It all begins with us. Those small changes make a huge impact on not only yourself and how you feel, but it extends to the entire world in so many different ways. So thank you for doing everything that you're doing, no matter where you are. It's all about progress, not perfection, and I'm just so grateful that you're part of the change. I will see you next time. Until then, have a great one. Bye-bye.